Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. So this is going to be a video on sort of an introduction to marketing and why marketing matters to you. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the value of marketing. So why do companies spend so much money on marketing? So the first thing we should do is really define marketing. So a more formalized definition is that marketing is an organizational function that consists of three components. So the first one is creating value. That's the first one. So the perceived benefits, which we would call customer value, like what do customers perceive is the value of buying an iPhone or buying a new a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic or whatever the item may be that they wish to buy. The second is communicating value. So for example, a new restaurant near a college campus might use online ads to communicate its convenient location, healthy alternatives, and monthly student specials. And then number three is delivering the value, which they would of course do through the supply chain, sometimes called the value chain, and obviously logistics, right? Kind of getting the product to the customer. So marketing creates value. So this is just a quick example. Obviously, everybody knows that Apple products are not cheap, but yet they obviously outsell. They certainly outsell their competitors. They don't have any problem with sales. So they know they can charge higher prices without losing sales because of the value that customers place on Apple. Now, yeah, maybe some of it's like a status thing. People like to say that they use Apple products. You see those little Apple logos, on vehicles that they sell. Yeah, maybe it's something like a kind of a club, kind of the trendy club to be in, if you will. But Apple products are good. They're well made, and a lot of people are willing to pay that extra money in order to have those products. Now, in order to get your stuff from, wherever you made it, all the way through the value chain, the supply chain as we call it here, you got to have an effective supply chain, right? You've got to be able to get it from wherever it starts out all the way through these different intermediaries, wholesalers, distributors, and then all the way to the customer. So companies like Walmart, Coca-Cola, UPS are very good at managing their supply chains. You think about if you take UPS, for example, or Walmart, right? Or even Coke. I mean, you think about how much stuff they move on a daily basis. And obviously they've been doing this for a long time. They've kind of got it down to a science. They're very good at that. Um, but you could kind of say that having an effective and efficient supply chain is providing a competitive advantage, as it says there, in their industries. Because imagine being a Walmart and you were terrible at supply chain, right? You wouldn't last very long, right? Because you're moving so much stuff. It has to be a very organized and a very systematic approach to doing that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the history of marketing real quick. So back in the 1920s, it was more of a product orientation, and that just kind of means that, as it says, the quality products would sell themselves. So it's kind of like, build it and they will come, per the old adage, right? So you just make it and it'll sell. You don't got to worry about it. Well, then they moved to a sales orientation, which you think about the Great Depression in the sort of like mid 20s all the way through the end of World War II. These were more sort of austerity times. People didn't have a ton of disposable income if they had any at all. Um, so it needed to become more about how are you going to convince these people to purchase what you're producing, hence the sales orientation. So as growth in production outpaced consumer demand, then they needed new ways to sell the products. So the production orientation era. So a great example of this, Henry Ford. So this Henry Ford, in case you don't know, is the guy that started Ford Motor Company. So Henry Ford's production line innovation and success manufacturing the Model A. So that's kind of like the first kind of production car that Ford came out, the Model A, first letter of the alphabet. The Model A automobile represents the production orientation era, during which firms believed that quality products would sell themselves. So again, it's kind of that build it and they will come mentality. Now, the marketing concept in the 1950s it sort of began, and this is, sort of post Second World War. We kind of move into this era of expansion, and this is characterized by a customer orientation. So, for example, at Walmart, employees in every department are expected to meet customer needs. And of course, as we deal with new technology, especially right now, of course, AI, artificial intelligence, that concept, that marketing concept, is going to continue to evolve. Now, one thing that's very important today is relationship marketing. This is one reason why you see all these firms that have social media accounts, a big social media presence, whereas say, 10 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen that. We know that Amazon uses, as it says, uses technology and large amounts of data to develop a relationship with its customers. One example of that would be if you ever notice when you're buying stuff on Amazon, it'll say things like customers that bought this also bought these things. So it's of course, yeah, they're trying to be helpful, but they're also trying to sell you more stuff. So how does the future of marketing look? So as technology and other changes affect the business world, firms are going to need new models that address what customers want and how they receive information. Now, obviously, most people probably know newspaper circulation has drastically decreased, while news from social media platforms has increased. And there's good and bad to that, obviously. Um, Cable subscriptions have gone way down, while streaming services like Netflix and Disney Plus have also increased. So, people are more about sort of the on-demand, if you will. All right, let's talk a little bit about needs versus wants. So, value is created when customer wants and needs are satisfied. So the exchange, the idea anyway, is the exchange makes each party better off. The needs are a basic part of human makeup, and of course, marketers strive to turn needs into wants. So they want to take something that um, you need, that they want to turn it into something that you want. So your need for food, as it says, into a want for a specific type of food or restaurant. So that's a good way to capitalize on, these are things that people have to do anyway. So maybe we can get them to fulfill that need, ideally create it, sort of morph that into a want and have them fulfill that through our firm, our company, our enterprise. So distinguishing needs from wants. And it's not always clear. Marketers provide products that fulfill customers' wants, which then satisfies their underlying needs. So as they were saying about food, yeah, obviously you have to have food, you got to eat. But if they, think about like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, all these, they're constantly advertising, they're constantly changing the menu, constantly tweaking the menu. Um, and they understand where everybody's going to eat. And ideally, we can make them, the customers, want to eat, and they can use us in order to fulfill that want, which really speaks to the underlying need. So, what is the ethical implications of needs versus wants? So, evaluating customer needs and wants must be done through an ethical framework to avoid potential problems for the firm and society as a whole. Well, good example, think about what we were just talking about, fast food. Obviously, fast food isn't good for you. Everybody knows that. So, is that something that you should be eating every single day? No, of course it's not. Um, so, if people were doing that, then you think about, how that's tied to like obesity rates and stuff like health, heart disease, all this sort of, plethora of health problems that would come with that. So yeah, there certainly are ethical implications of, yeah, we want people to use this, but depending on what we're selling, it may not be very good for people. Okay, one of the main things I want to talk about in this video is the four Ps. So the marketing mix is made up of the four Ps, which are, you may know this: product, price, place, and promotion. So product, of course, contains many tangible and intangible characteristics. It could also take the form of services or possibly even ideas. Price relates to the value that consumers place on the product. This is the easiest marketing mix element to change. Of course, if you do that, if the price goes up or down, it's going to affect revenue, which of course, that's revenue is an accounting term, just means the amount earned from selling products. So just think about revenue is basically P times Q, price times quantity. So the price per unit you're charging multiplied by the quantity that you sold. And then the other two, place, which is of course is important because firms must distribute products to where customers can buy and consume them without difficulty. So this speaks to the supply chain, logistics, SCM, supply chain management, as it says there. What modes of transport, what nodes of transportation are available? Air, sea freight, for example, road. And then finally, promotion, which includes advertising, sales promotion, personal selling, and public relations. So, of course, with the advent of social media, as we were just talking about, it allows firms to communicate quickly and directly with customers. And it's also very cheap as well. So, what are some trends affecting marketing? Now, we know that we live in a globally interconnected world. I think everybody knows that, right? So, more than any time in history, businesses today are affected by developments across the globe. So you think about, how does the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Speaking of supply chain, if y'all remember, about a year or two back, that the ship that I think it was called the Evergrande or the Evergreen that got stuck in the Suez Canal, and it kind of held up global shipping for because everything was coming through that Suez Canal. It kind of impacted global shipping there for a few weeks and really a few months before that kind of rippled out and took care of itself. So globalization refers to the increasingly interconnected nature of the world economy. NAFTA is a good example. That's the North American Free Trade Agreement. That's basically the US, Canada, and Mexico. So we've got to think about marketing on a global scale because most companies, I mean, yes, smaller companies perhaps, but most companies are not selling just here in the US. They're also selling overseas. They've got to meet, um, what's the regulatory, that's the word I was looking for. Regulatory requirements overseas could be different. They may have to adapt products to meet those. They may have to take into account religion, for example. Um, so, like, for example, in India, the predominant religion in India is Hindu, and Hindus do not eat beef. So, McDonald's has to be mindful of that when, they're building their restaurants and thinking about, what are they going to offer as far as the menu goes. All right, marketing analytics. So evaluating the success of marketing initiatives by measuring performance using business metrics. So for example, seeking out commercial spots that are not as expensive, but most likely to have the same number of viewers. All right, so that's going to really depend on like the time of day that they air it. Obviously, if you were looking for cheap, you wouldn't do it in the Super Bowl. I'm sure you've all heard those stories about how expensive Super Bowl commercial, like a 30-second air is like $2 million or $3 million. It's just something ridiculous. So they can use analytics when selling products, services, or ideas. And it says business executives have more pressure to be data driven. I think that's really, in most companies now, that's really true, all the way down to at least middle management and perhaps all the way down to the very bottom of the organization. Now, ethics in marketing. Ethics should be a key component of a successful marketing approach. So the AMA, that's the American Marketing Association, has adopted a code of ethics. Um, We've seen examples, as it says, Enron and WorldCom, two huge American companies that were taken down in about 2001, 2002, and really because they were unethical. It was a lot of accounting tricks, things that they were doing that people were signing off on that they, frankly, never should have signed off on. Um, so yeah, it can generate profits. Unethical behavior can generate profits in the short term, usually at the sacrifice of long term, operability and profitability. Um, if you're ethical, maybe you have to sacrifice some profits now, but like in the long run, you will make more money. And the last thing I wanted to touch on in this video is marketing yourself, because you know you should be thinking even now about how do other people perceive me? There's an old saying that perception is reality. Like somebody's perception of you is kind of their like reality of you. So you should be thinking about what skills do I have? How am I marketing those skills? What do people think of when they see me? Like, how do I interact with people? What is the kind of a brand that I want to set forth? And then how am I doing things or saying things to make sure that that's reinforcing my brand, if you will. So yeah, as it says, marketing principles are useful for everyone, not just companies, us individuals too. So marketing principles help you position yourself relative to others competing for the same job. So you might say, well, I'm very tech savvy. I'm very quantitative, right? I'm left-brained, right? Like I'm a math person. That would certainly help you in this day and age. So marketing principles can help you answer the question, why should I hire you? I'm glad you asked, right? Well, here are all the things that I bring to the table. This is my brand, if you will. So just something good to be thinking about because you don't want to be thinking about this when you're sitting there, across from somebody in an interview. You want to have these things prepared, right? And these things take time. Building a brand obviously takes time. All right, thanks for watching, and I will see you all in a future video. Take care.